out, and I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Alright, it's getting kinda dirty in these YouTube streets. The Amira squad, God thinking you dudes weak. Islam or Judaism, where you learn what you dudes teach. The West African rappers slapping with that voodoo speech. All that sub-Saharan terror about a kufu feet. I'm like Norma, that agricultural farmer that grew you wheat for the storehouses. We feed the Hebrews and lead the people when we defeat the feeble. They wanna know polite rip me off, but Sonetta paid me my money though. That mean he 100. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Nubian with the Jews, I rock the pinky. I think Jesus got to save me, a doctor save me, a Dr. Inky. I cop the copper jewels on blue and red. I'm not the chakra doctor y'all claim woke, but you in bed, you won't pop a chopper, you Grandmaster J. You just talking. Punks turn the other cheek and you will walk away. Y'all gon' have to pardon my Moorish. That's Taharka Bay. I'm on that black African power on my darkest day. And that's my brother Ankh stomping them other punks. We brought them gators to Italy, you loving the Moors. And now I'm teaching from my shrine like Brother Jabari. Scoping the savannah cause I'm on another safari. Tasha K showed us Frank record. Young Pharaoh just losing his mind, and y'all can't help it. I know one thing, you're a fool if you're still out here donating to Umar school. That shit cool. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Look. You showing your hidden colors like Tariq Nasheed. A bunch of pseudo-information I don't think I need. Probably lying on the text, ask to find a Zion Lex. Just get that microphone ready. With Metal Netta, I'm Stone Jetty. A Ujahu, a Saw Imhotep. Y'all probably timid still on them Bobby Hemming teachings. I'm in Gozy with the DNA. Cats corny and it's killing me too. You talk that black shit, but you look Arab like Gorilla Hebrew. You need therapy, they telling me just chillin', be cool. I'm a magi archer, you a sad guy talking. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. Get this right. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh.
Thanks for compliment on the bars, yo. I got to be clear on that one, though. I don't want nobody to think I'm talking about Sonetta on that song. Saw my man, we go back, and Saw always did right by me, you know what I'm saying? The House of Consciousness is something he created with a cast of characters, and believe it or not, he ain't one of them. You know, he's the host of the show, so I just want that to be clear. But yeah, I mean, you know, going out crazy, I consider myself part of that, and you know what I'm saying? And I just see a lot of my brothers just, all I can say is going out crazy, bruh. But yeah, we about to get this pop-a-lopping today, because it's been so fun. Make sure y'all, my audio good out there. Let me get a thumbs up if anybody is out there. I'm not even looking. I got the chat to the side. So if y'all give me a thumbs or something to let me know my audio good in the chat, we about to bust down. And we dealing with a title that I got from Christopher Eric. And we're gonna play a lot of his video as well as another scholar named, can I get a sign off if anybody out there though? Just anything to let me know how the audio is. Another scholar named Donald Reed. Y'all are great, thank you. And they address, let me show y'all something. Just keep it a buck. Trying to stop smoking that weed, right? Because that don't be, I mean, you know, it's legal, everything where I am. But you know, I'm at the age where I'm just like, come on, bro. Take on the biggest challenge. And that's what my biggest challenge is. So I just got me some sip, but I ain't messing with it. Believe it or not, this is a THC product, you know, that is a tea and a lemonade that, you know, I ain't even tried it yet, but I'm just out here letting y'all know what I've been doing with myself. You know what I'm saying? Really trying to get some of my last little struggles and my last little flaws up out. We always gonna struggle with things for life, but I'm like, you know what? I'm about to attack that. And it's just like that. Peace, peace. I see you out there. Okay, now, so my good brother Chief X has been going through something. You know what I mean? As far as the conscious community is concerned. And I'm right with him as far as busting out all these frauds and all that stuff. Yeah, I feel you. That's why I always fucked with Chief X, because of what his stance was. But I think he cast his net a little bit too wide, a little bit, and starting to become under the assumption that every piece of information that he's gotten out of the conscious community has been fake, pseudo, and what we call in the Amira Squad, blackology. I mean, and I would say blackology, just the logic that everything was black. I mean, that blackology goes far beyond Afrocentrism. You feel what I'm saying? Blackology is just like you just on that other. That's the everybody was black. King James was black. You know, just so we ain't, and we try not to be blackologists. With that being said, I appreciate that, William Owens. We about to bring that heat today. I mean, that true fire. So thanks for the donation. And with that being said, there's a lot of information to peruse when you want to deal with some of these subjects, some of these topics, almost so much so that a lot of this information has been structured, you feel what I'm saying, and formed, and it's handed out in degrees and through semesters and stuff like that. And so you have to understand how long it would take for even one to be gamed or skilled in Egyptology. Now, one of the mistakes I see that's being made oftentimes when people try to refute us are they're not really dealing with the latest information. And it will be so easy for me to say Egyptology was racist, Egyptology was racist, because I know this and I experience it while going through my materials. But now we're in a new day and age where Egyptologists are saying this. So if you're using books, even from the early 90s when they were still dealing with, see, there was still a backlash against Afrocentrism all the way up until the 90s. Because Diop and them did their things in the 70s, which raised a conversation in the 80s about Egyptian race. It's always been since Du Bois went to school with Breasted and them. Or was it Reisner? See, all right, we're going to go in on this because what I'm going to do today is let y'all hear from the mouth of the modern day professors. You see what I'm talking about? And then you're going to have to ask yourself, who's preaching white supremacy? Who's teaching racist ideology that there was no black people in Egypt to the community right now? Is it the Amira Squad or others? You see what I'm saying? And we gonna go right in on this. I'm not even about to hold y'all, because this is about to be a good one. And first we about to present anxiety. And these videos you can find on YouTube and watch the whole entire lectures. This is a Harvard professor lecture, Professor Donald Reed, who's gonna first lay out what I call the substrate for this video, breaking down the racism in Egyptology, okay? So I don't even have to say it out my mouth. We just gonna get it in. And let me know if the audio from the professor is good for y'all as we visit this video called Anxieties About Race in Egyptology and Egyptomania from 1890 to 1960. Okay? Let me know if his audio is good so he can lay this out for y'all and I ain't even got to. And I'm saying, hold on, before I play it, this the stuff they ain't seen. It gotta be. This the information you need. This is modern day new information. And this is what they saying. So don't be telling me what no old book saying, because my man about to discredit them all right here. And check this out.
Professor Donald Reed. Thank you, Peter. Good evening.
Let me know
I'd
if
like
his
to
audio
thank
good.
everybody at the Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology and Dr. Peter Manuelian for inviting me to participate in its 150th anniversary lecture series, Race, Representation, and Museums. And I've called my presentation Anxieties About Race in Egyptology and Egyptomania, 1890 to 1960.
Oh yeah, come on.
I do not approach this subject as an Egyptologist, archaeologist, classicist, anthropologist, or biologist, but as a historian of the modern Middle East who has done research on archaeology and museums in Egypt in the context of colonialism, nationalism, and decolonization. I start from the premise that races are not fixed, scientifically verifiable identities, but shifting social constructs which vary from time to time and place to place.
Gonna be stopping every time he dropped bombs like that. That was already a dismantling bomb. He starts from the premise that race is not, listen, come on, I want us to absorb this so we can see how he dismantled all of our opponents.
A historian of the modern Middle East who has done research on archaeology and museums in Egypt in the context of colonialism, nationalism, and decolonization. I start from the premise that races are not fixed, scientifically verifiable identities,
No, they're not.
but shifting social constructs which vary from time to time and place to place. A person considered black in the U.S. might be judged colored in the Caribbean and white in Brazil. In 1924, some Virginians who thought they were white woke up one morning to find that a change in the law had made them black. In 1887, African-American leader Frederick Douglass encountered a white American family at the pyramids who mistook him for an Arab and assumed that he did not speak English. Such confusions point up the artificiality of race, but that does not mean that race and racial hierarchies are unimportant. They have real consequences, often disastrous for real people. Ancient Egyptians would have been bewildered by our debates over whether they were black or white. Like modern Egyptians, they had a range of skin colors, hair types, and facial features. They often depicted men as reddish-brown and clean-shaven, and women with pale yellowish skin. New Kingdom artists often
I want to pause that he said women got depicted with yellowish skin, not white women, and men got depicted with reddish skin, not black men or not white men. It was just a depiction of gender, so to speak. But I'm not going to be interrupting all the time. I'm just going to drive home some points.
stereotyped Africans to their south as black with broad noses and curly hair, and Asiatics to their northeast and Libyans to their west as lighter skinned and bearded. On his footstool, Tutankhamun symbolically trampled Asiatic and Nubian captives. An Egyptologist could elaborate on the evolution of such artistic conventions and how they reinforced or differed from social realities, but our focus tonight is on modern racial anxieties anachronistically projected back onto ancient Egypt. My talk is organized around 5 vignettes, each representing a theme with a long history. Whitening the Egyptians, number 1. Number 2, ancient Egypt as the founder of civilization with the question marks Western, white. Number 3, blackening the Egyptians. Number 4, sons of the pharaohs, modern Egyptian perceptions of race in ancient Egypt. Number 5, Nazi anti-Semitism, Egyptology, and Harvard's missed opportunity.
Now, just for the video, I want to let y'all know we only going to deal with whitening the Egyptians right here. But if you want to see these other chapters, which are very good and all support my claim and my thesis, the video is called Anxieties About Race in Egyptology and Egyptomania again. And so we're only going to deal with this one right here, which is whitening the Egyptians. Now let's go in.
Vignette 1, Whitening the Egyptians, centers on James Henry Breasted's influential high school textbook, Ancient Times, A History of the Early World, published in 1916 with a revised edition in 1935. I first encountered it in my 9th grade class in ancient history in 1954. One of 2 key founders of American Egyptology, Breasted established the University of Chicago's Oriental Institute in 1919, and it still flourishes today. The other founder was George Reisner, a Harvard professor and Egyptian curator at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. Breasted was born in the same year as iconic poet of imperialism Rudyard Kipling, and the year the U.S. Civil War ended, 1865. In 1866, philanthropist George Peabody endowed Peabody Museums at both Harvard and Yale. And in 1867, George Reisner was born.
I want to stop right there. Look, this the reason why they can't get through content like this, because it's too structured and too boring for them. And so they come back with some sensationalism and something that's hype. But I'm just going to let him go in again. I just want y'all to feel that. Don't feel the inclination not to hear what he about to tell you about these racists. He just told you the 2 people who started Egyptology in the U.S., and he about to go in on it.
Breasted did his M.A. at Yale, Reisner his B.A., M.A., and Ph.D. at Harvard. In the 1890s, both went on to study in Berlin under Adolf Ehrmann. Jeffrey Abt wrote this fine biography of Breasted, and Peter Manuelian is writing a much anticipated biography of Reisner. Reisner was a meticulous excavator in Egypt and Sudan who acquired much of the Egyptian collections of the Museum of Fine Arts and the Peabody. Breasted, in contrast, believed that copying and publishing fast-perishing inscriptions was more urgent than excavation. These 2 founding fathers were fierce rivals, as their body language in this 1935 photograph suggests. In 1905, Breasted wrote that studying early burials in Egypt had, quote, produced such a diversity of opinion among physical anthropologists as to render it impossible for the historian to obtain decisive results from their researches, end quote. In 1916, in Ancient Times, he sensibly described modern peasants in the Delta as both brown and as descendants of ancient Egyptians. The brown label sidestepped the insistence of many white Americans that except for American Indians and East Asians, you had to be either black or white. In 1919, however, Breasted wrote home to his wife in Chicago, comparing Egypt's anti-British revolt that year in the U.S. Anti-British revolt in Egypt to U.S. race riots that summer, which left 23 African Americans and 15 whites dead in Chicago alone. Quote, "We reached Alexandria Thursday morning. There had been rioting the day before. The country people have had enough and are ready to settle down under British authority, but the little Tarbushed Effendis in Cairo and Alexandria are still making trouble. The outbreak in Cairo is likely to come at any minute. You need not have the slightest anxiety. The trouble will be confined to certain quarters, just as was the Negro rioting in Chicago. The authorities are quite ready and indeed are hoping that the lid may blow off very violently in order to show the agitators the strong hand at once and without mercy. The country is full of British troops," end quote. The greater emphasis on race in the 1935 second edition of his textbook, Ancient Times, came in the wake of such popular works as Lothrop Stoddard's 1920 book, The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy, and in the wake of the U.S. 1924 Immigration Act, which drastically reduced immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe and nearly banned it from Asia. Stoddard had a Harvard PhD in history and was also a Klansman who warned that the, quote, great Nordic race was under siege from all directions. The preface to his book was written by Madison Grant, whose own book, The Passing of the Great Race, or The Racial Basis of European History, came out in 1916, the same year as Breasted's Ancient Times. No marginal figure, Grant was chairman of the New York Zoological Society and trustee of the American Museum of Natural History. In 1930, the US Census succumbed to the one-drop rule, dropping the category of mulatto and classifying those with any fraction of Negro ancestry as Negroes. When Breasted's 1935 textbook edition discarded the brown option, however, he annexed ancient Egyptians to his, quote, great white race.
You see how he broke that down? I love how white people be doing that shit. They raw with their words. He basically just told you, oh, he all of a sudden dropped all that brown shit he was talking about when he was equating it to the Negroes rioting and we gonna put hands on them like we did in Chicago. He said it multiple times in 1816. Now all of a sudden he talking about he annexed ancient Egypt to his, quote, great white race. He about to break it down, so let's feel good.
Ignore the white patch here, which represents the ice sheet in the last ice age. Maybe since this is a geology hall here, I shouldn't say to ignore that, but concentrate instead on the sweep of his great white race from the Arctic through the Sahara and the Atlantic to the Urals and the Caspian. The black race and the Mongoloid or yellow race are reduced to small letters on the margin and of course not labeled great. Breasted insisted, quote, the peoples of the great Northwest Quadrant, as far back as we know anything about prehistoric man, have all been members of a race of white men who have well been called the Great White Race. The men of this race created the civilization we have inherited. The Mongoloids on the east and the Negroes on the south occupy an important place in the modern world, but they played no part in the rise of civilization. On the south lay the teeming world of black Africa as it does today. It was separated from the Great White Race by the broad stretch of the Sahara Desert. Sometimes the blacks of inner Africa did wander along the Nile Valley Road to Egypt, but they came only in small groups. Thus, cut off by the desert barrier and living by themselves, they remained uninfluenced by civilization from the north. The Negro peoples of Africa were therefore without any influence on the development of early civilization, end quote. Drawing on decades of painstaking craniometry or craniology, the measurement of skulls, this diagram breaks Breasted's great white race into three subgroups. Number one, the Nordics of the northern flatlands with long-headed, tall, blue-eyed, and blonde. Number two, round-headed alpines of Central Europe's highlands. And number three, long-headed Mediterraneans whose southern branch included ancient Egyptians. The note under the diagram concedes without elaboration.
Hold on, what did he say? Mediterraneans whose southern group included ancient Egyptians. So who talking about ancient Egyptian? Ancient Egypt is a Mediterranean culture. I'm showing y'all the start. No, he's showing y'all the start of all this pseudo race history. Then he about to just tear it all apart. Watch this.
That, quote, south of the Mediterranean, the people of the Great White Race are darker skinned than elsewhere, end quote. Breasted's 1935 edition did protest that the popular term Aryan should be applied only to the Indian and Iranian branch of Indo-Europeans, but it also hailed, quote, The eventual triumph of Greece and Rome in the Near East as evidence that the Indo-European branch of the white race triumphed over the southern Semitic branch, the complete triumph of our ancestors, end quote. This not only conflated the Indo-European and Semitic language groups with race, but also implied the rejection of Semites, which in the US of the 1930s primarily meant Jews, as part of his American we or us. Even so, for his day, Breasted was relatively moderate on race compared to some of his scholarly predecessors and contemporaries. In the years leading up to the Civil War and the founding of the Peabody Museum, the American Ethnological School of Samuel Morton, Josiah Nott, and George Glidden claimed that science proved that races had not changed since ancient times, whites were biologically superior, and that ancient Egyptians were white, but as in the southern US, had blacks as slaves and servants. Nott and Glidden's 1854 Types of Mankind declared of Ramses II, quote, "His features are as superbly European as Napoleon's, whom he resembles."
See, look, now even the white people laughing at that racist stuff. He put up this picture to show you how he enlightened Ramses and telling you about all the, I don't know, the volume on, that's not me controlling their volume. He must have stepped away from the mic or something, so it went low. Hopefully it'll come back up. But I'm just kind of narrating how he's showing you what they did. He's about to walk this into the public schools, though. Watch this.
Then they showed this pharaonic captive with collar and cord, labeling it Negro, 3,200 years old. Flinders Petrie, Breasted's contemporary, was an ardent eugenicist who attributed Egypt's civilization to an invading superior race, white, of course. Clarence Fisher, in a labor dispute with his mentor, George Reisner, assumed that modern Egyptians were black and thus not to be trusted. Quote, "Dr. Reisner's present attitude is an acknowledgement that he regards the word of a native black man as to be more relied on than that of two white men, such as Mr. Sanborn and myself, the representatives of a sister university,"
End quote. Did you hear that? That was just a bomb. First of all, they ran up. See, let me explain this to anybody who don't know what dude just said. This is Peep Game, the show Sunday School. What he just said was, when they was funking, the white boys ran up on him like, "So you gonna take the word of the black man over us?" But he was talking about a native Egyptian who was Muhammad Mahmud, or he gonna tell you his name so I won't mess it up. This is in the 1800s. They talking about dude who he got his knowledge from, and then the two white dudes running up on him like, "That ain't right knowledge. You gonna take his word over our word?" But they was calling him a black man in the letter. I hope we all tripped off that. And so let's see how he breaks it down. Again, I'm not gonna go back too far this time. Let's see if I can get it right.
Acknowledgement that he regards the word of a native black man as to be more relied on than that of two white men, such as Mr. Sanborn and myself, the representatives of a sister university, end quote. To Reisner, Fisher wrote, quote, "It is usually accepted that the word of a white man is better than that of a native, but I am sorry to say that several times during the past 2 years you have thought it best to think otherwise. If you intend to support Mahmoud el-Mayyit, it is intended as an insult not only to us personally, but to the University of Pennsylvania. It will certainly destroy any other white man's authority over these people," end quote.
You heard that? You heard that, bro? He got bombs. He talking about, if you keep supporting this black dude who's saying that Egypt was black, it's going to take away our authority over these people. I mean, did he just say that? End quote. And then look at the look on the scholar face. Like, did y'all catch that? Hold on, we got to make sure the people got that, bro. For real. Come on, we running it back like battle rap.
End quote. Vignette 2. Ancient Egypt as the founder of civilization, with the question marks, Western, white. In the dome of the Library of Congress in 1890.
Look, I didn't even run that back, and I ain't even tripping. I just wanted y'all to get some of that. But he keep on breaking that down, and I ain't intending to show his whole 1 hour video. But the last thing he basically said was for you to understand the purpose of their whitening of Kemet. And he says it, and listen, and tell me, am I misinterpreting this? Listen.
Usually accepted that the word of a white man is better than that of a native, but I am sorry to say that several times during the past 2 years you have thought it best to think otherwise. If you intend to support Mahmoud el-Mayyit, it is intended as an insult not only to us personally, but to the University of Pennsylvania. It will certainly destroy any other white man's authority over these people. And
oh my God, so now what? He don't want him to use the work of the brother who's a native that they call a black man, because it most certainly would destroy the authority of a white man over these people. So this is what their focus was. But now we're gonna switch gears a little bit and get over to my good scholar and teacher and honest and really honest teacher, Christopher Eric. Just so he could step in real quick and start just tossing all kind of napalm bombs at the pseudos who read old ass books.
Well, thank you all. I want, as I've been doing, to again thank the Hutchins Center, the Center for African Studies, and all the variety of people from Professor Gates and Abby Wolf on through all the great people that I've been working with that are on their team. It's been a great experience, and this is an honor to me and a great time I've certainly been having. I hope I can make it at least of some interest to you as well. So let's see if I still have my little clicker so we can change scenes. So my beginning comment here, ancient Egypt was in Africa. We can't really doubt that, can we? It's in the continent. But more important, ancient Egypt was of Africa. And that, of course, is not the way the past 2 centuries of Western scholarship have generally presented its history. It's long past time, I would say, for all of us to discard a whole set of old notions about Egypt, notions rooted in really the self-serving racialist presumptions of 19th century Europeans, notions that only too often people even today simply assume. They've never thought to examine those ideas. They're back in the background, informing our minds even when we're not aware they are. And on the historical and the scholarly level, that re-examination is underway. The most recent, maybe we should say generations, the last 30 years or so, of scholars and scholarship on Nubia and Egypt are bringing together a whole new body, and maybe I should say whole new bodies of evidence, revealing the African rootedness of pre-dynastic and early dynastic Egyptian culture.
Oh, I love that. I just be loving that. You heard how he just told me that everybody I'm arguing against is a pseudo? You see how he eloquently said that? He said it so much better than me because my words tend to be offensive. I don't want nobody to look at that pejorative and be like, I'm calling you a name like a bad word. Definitely not. We talking about the information that some of us have been using ain't facts. And he telling y'all this. He gonna break it down like they do, though. I love it. Watch this.
By the way, this is just going off here for a second. Some of you may have seen or heard about a recent genetics article that makes the ancient Egyptians out to be Levantines. Let me be very clear, these findings come from one locale in a large stretch of possible locales in northern Egypt, and the finds date well after the foundational periods of ancient Egypt. It's somewhat as if, I was thinking of this particular image, rather than investigating DNA from a 17th century cemetery in Plymouth, we instead choose to investigate DNA from a later 19th century cemetery in South Boston. And then we conclude, having done that, that the United States was founded by people of Irish descent, and that Americans were predominantly, are predominantly Irish.
Bomb.
Well, that isn't necessarily how the...
This is the scholar Christopher Ehret, and he has plenty of books on the subject.
Writers of the article meant it to be interpreted, but that's certainly the way I've had people interpreting it to me. Even someone with a Coptic, seemed to be a Coptic last name from the sounds of things, berating me for being such a terrible human being all these years of my whole career for ever having thought of Egypt as being African. So anyway, there is a deeper problem here. Genetics may be able to tell us about the different elements in our individual genetic, physical ancestries that we may have partaken, come from in our individual selves. But genes do not at all determine language. It's our own historical, cultural, life experiences, personal experiences that determine what languages speak, not our genes. And we need only look around at.
So anybody trying to talk DNA, he's just telling you who's pseudo. I'm sorry. He telling you from an academic perspective. We be trying to say it. I asked this question simply. Can DNA determine race? No one wants to address that question because it can't. But you got a question on the screen, are Egyptians black or white? That's a race. Then you try to turn to somebody talking about DNA.
Each other here in the room to know the truth of that. And it is these experiences also that shape our culture choices and our choice of cultural self-identification. Again, not our genes, it's our historical and cultural experiences. Now, the stories that I want to tell today explore the developments that laid the cultural and language foundations of ancient Egypt, developments beginning before, sometimes long before, 3100 BCE. Now, the foundational areas of Egypt also, of ancient Egypt, also encompass not northern Egypt, but a whole range of lands extending far across northeastern Africa. And there are actually two ancient Egyptian foundational stories that I'd like to tell, and so that gives me an opportunity to change our slide. Well, one of these we might call the deep time story, the story of cultural and historical developments from the 6th millennium on down to around 3100 BCE. And the setting of this story was what was then a wide swath of steppe grassland, not some narrow strip of habitable land just along the river, extending for more than 1,000 kilometers, extending north-south from beyond the confluence of the Blue and White Nile in the south to as far north as the archaeological sites at El Badari in Middle Egypt. It was this vast stretch of lands that constituted the foundational cultural regions and the cultural heartland of pre-dynastic Egypt. But there is also a second story, what one might call the way deep time story, with its beginnings before 15,000 BCE.
Tell him, Chris.
And the setting for the way deep time story takes us even farther south in northeastern Africa.
Tell him.
So to give things their proper historical order, let's do first things first. Let's begin with that earlier way deep story. In doing so, we'll consider the kinds of historical evidence that I'm particularly known for applying, comparative linguistic and cultural evidence, along with archaeology. To excavate this history, we must set out, first of all, the language relationships of ancient Egyptian. Now, ancient Egyptian belonged to the Afroasiatic language family. Small
Belonged,
digression
he
here.
said past tense.
There is an older name for the Afroasiatic family, a horrendously bad name. The alternative name, Hamito-Semitic. You recognize the name Ham, of course, here in Hamito. To still use that name today is to perpetuate the horrific invention by racists of a myth used to justify enslaving Africans. And it's the slaver's own myth, it's not truly biblical, that Ham was the ancestor of all Africans, so they could get the Africans they wanted into their myth.
Can y'all just give this man some props? He is busting them open. But just listen to these facts.
That God had passed Noah's curse on to Ham's supposed descendants by giving them dark skins. And even more horrifying to me, still in our own day, I've been discovering there are only too many American fundamentalist Christians who still hold to this myth. It's really shocking and sad to see. So avoid this name as if it were the plague, or indeed the 7 plagues of ancient Egypt. So back to our topic. 3 initiating questions this really requires from us. First, how and when did the language directly ancestral to ancient Egyptian come to be spoken along the Egyptian Nile? And answering that question requires 2 other questions to answer. Where does the ancient Egyptian fit in the family tree of relationships within the Afroasiatic language family? And where were the languages of the family most probably spoken at different points along the lines of descent in the family tree, which we haven't quite yet shown you? So first we need to view the family tree of Afroasiatic.
Okay, now I got scholars who I roll with that would contest, I'm just putting this out there, they would contest this family tree or this language family as being pseudo. Okay, I just want you to know that as we present this. And so those are some contingencies too of his. But he's still giving it up all the way. He's just giving it up. But I had to put that out there.
What I'm going to do is treat a little series of slides here, tracking the lines of descent of ancient Egyptian back to the original Proto-Afroasiatic language. So there, that gets you to ancient Egyptian, and back through these successive earlier stages back to Proto-Afroasiatic, the mother language of the whole family. Now, these findings, by the way, are very similar to ones that have been previously published, but the version that is here is coming from the ongoing work of a team of scholars that I brought together. We've combined some newer mathematical approaches, ones that are actually used in the genetics field, along with traditional methods of working out language and language family genealogies. What languages are closely related to each other and which are farther, and so on. A first presentation of our findings is currently in the process of publication, and well, you know, the evidence is like, oh God, so much of it. Anyway, but I'd really probably be happy to talk with people about
I don't want him to start
what
boring
goes
you, so
into it.
stick in
And we'll
there.
have to wait a few more months for
Hang in there,
the
people.
material starts to be out, and I get all the materials up online for people to see. But as I say, I'd be a little happy to talk with people about this a little bit afterwards. Now, in your handout, you will see that there is a bibliography, and so
We
on
don't
that
got
bibliography
handouts, so
you
I'ma
can
skip
find
forward a little.
some articles that refer to the ancient locations of people.
There we
The
go.
first is the principle of fewest moves, often called least moves, but I'm a little uncomfortable because moves should have fewest, not least, but anyway, sorry being a grammatical whatever I am here. To state this principle in plain terms, the most probable history of a spread of a language family is the history that most parsimoniously, we're getting to Occam's razor here, accounts for the later locations of the languages of the family. The most probable history is, in other words, the history that requires the fewest and the most direct and straightforward movements of people into new lands, people who speak languages of the family. And a second principle, which is related, we might call the center of diversity principle. What anthropologists long ago discovered is that the areas where a particular complex of cultural practices shows the greatest diversity in the particular ways the individual practices are carried out or expressed is the region where the complex is usually the oldest. And the guiding idea behind this, of course, is that the longer a set of cultural ideas or practices have been existed in an area, the more time it has had for people to develop in different cultures, with different subcultures within that area, to develop their own new varieties and new features of those ideas. Well, in similar fashion, we can use this principle for language families. If there is a region where the earliest branching of a language family, where the earliest branchings of that family cluster close to each other, that will be most likely the region where the languages of the family have longest been spoken. So, how do these principles apply to ancient Egyptian? Well, the geography of the successive branchings of the Afroasiatic tree puts it beyond doubt in my mind, beyond reasonable doubt is the term I would use, that one, that the family originated somewhere in the Horn of Africa, in and around that region, and two, that...
What'd he say? So the ancient Egyptian language family originated, he given the whole Afro-Asiatic, which we know that ancient Egyptian might not even be under that umbrella, but in his research it is. And he's saying, look, number one, it originated in the Horn of Africa, okay? He daggering people up.
That speakers of the languages of the family then spread in a step-by-step succession of advances outward from the Horn. So back to the family tree.
He just said Metal Nature developed in the Horn of Africa. While everybody else telling you some Eastern invasion theories or all the old racist theories that the first dude showed you. But if you watch the first guy, Donald Reed's whole entire video, you need to watch it because he shows you how how Breasted and them got their racist theories into American schools by setting up something that was called a class we don't have anymore, but it was an old class called Western Civilizations. But Western Civilizations was created by Breasted and Reisner. And then out of Western Civilizations, they killed it and gave us world history class. And I don't know who developed that. But so make sure you watch all of these videos because I'm not going to play them all for copyrights and other purposes. You feel me? And that's why I keep stopping it and injecting my own words so that I won't get... And whatever, but this is for educational purposes only, and so that's why they let you use this content. So I want y'all to really watch the whole first video because he got way more daggers, and these are the type of lectures and displays that'll actually you can source. It's not like you just saying I got it off YouTube. You don't say YouTube. You talk about the scholar and his presentation. But let's keep going.
And here I've underlined a few key groups so that you can see be able to identify them when we get to them. The tracking of this history begins with the first two divergences of the family. Initially, the Proto-Afroasiatic language diverged into two daughter languages. Each daughter language was ancestral to one of the two primary branches of the family. You can see we have two primary branches way up at the top of the tree. One was Proto-Omotic. I hope that arrow popped up.
I see, look, we're not even about to watch how, because it's going to get linguistic, and I know it's going to get extra boring, but the name of this video is, and notice how I pull up the transcripts. Let me give y'all a bar when you're doing something scholarly on YouTube if you don't know that. Go to the text and click transcripts if you did know that. And if you didn't, give me some props and throw a 5 up in the air. And then you can toggle the timeline and it's going to take away these timestamps. So then you can just transcribe somebody's video by copying the whole video, and now you got the text of the video. And so that's why you don't see me with comments under my YouTube. I normally take what people saying and put it in the book form and then go and research it that way on the videos that allow you to do that. So that's just a research jewel right there for anybody who didn't know that if you can't finish watching the video, or if you're having some Wi-Fi problems or something, either hurry up and click transcripts before you get on the airplane and you can read the video basically. But yeah, this again, I was coming here to show y'all the title of the video so that y'all could, anybody who wanted to get into it later, it's called The Africanity of Ancient Egypt, and it's by Christopher Eyre. And so I know we're getting some vacuuming. There's a lot of cleaning and stuff going over here. I got a call-in number. Let me open up my little call-in number, because I just felt like that was getting boring to people, even though he gonna go so good in as almost a 2.5 hour video. And yeah, I will put the links in the description. I appreciate that, yeah. But let me see. I'm gonna see if somebody want to call in and build on any of these topics we about to discuss. And so, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna go back to my first man, because he was dropping some of them bombs, and we just toggling between these lectures. So this is okay. He said, "Nah, that wasn't boring." Well, again, I mean, it's multiple reasons. For one, he dropped a lot of the bombs. I wanted to get up to where he said the languages came up out of the Horn of Africa. And then he started going into linguistic work that some of us on the squad don't all the way agree with. You feel me? And so that's going to open up a new can of worms for me I wish Asar or somebody here was present, and then I would love to play those parts so he could describe the contingency or where we take issue with some of the things he's saying about that language group. But that is not the point. He bowed down and said, look, this language developed in the Horn of Africa. And so that was really the point of me bringing that to you. Why? Because with language, and we got the language developing in Africa. With the pottery, we got the cultural items developing in Africa. You see what I'm saying? And so I want to get back to some of the things my slick professor Donald Reed was saying with such an eloquent tongue, and a lot of us wasn't catching it. We're going to go back to that last quote that he ended on his presentation about the enlightening Egypt, to show you why they wanted to enlighten Egypt. And in this quote, one scholar is taking the word of a native Egyptian who the other two scholars call a black man. So it's so many bombs in this quote. You feel me? Because he's taking the word of a native Egyptian, the Mahmoud guy, who the other two scholars from the University of Pennsylvania calling a black man. But then dude come back firing, and then they basically say the reason why we doing this because we ain't gonna be able to have control over these people. And here's the quote, and we're gonna let him keep building.
Wrote, quote, "It is usually accepted that the word of a white man is better than that of a native, but I am sorry to say that several times during the past 2 years you have thought it best to think otherwise. If you intend to support Mahmoud el-Mayyit, it is intended as an insult not only to us personally, but to the University of Pennsylvania. It will certainly destroy any other white man's authority over these people," end quote. Vignette 2, Ancient Egypt as the founder of civilization, with the question marks, Western, white. In the dome of the Library of Congress in 1896, Edwin Blashfield's mural, Evolution of Civilization, anticipated by 2 decades the outline of Breasted's textbook. Egypt and America sit side by side in Blashfield's painting because Egypt is the origin of civilization, which progresses around the dome to its climax in America. Blashfield, who had studied painting in Paris, knew Egyptian antiquity firsthand through his marriage to Evangeline Wilbur, the daughter of amateur Egyptologist Charles Wilbur. In 1890, the three wintered together for 5 months on her father's Nile dahabeah, the Seven Hathors. Blashfield's vision of the progress of civilization runs from Egypt to Judea to Greece to Rome. Only Mesopotamia and Persia were major omissions from Breasted's later textbook outline. Breasted's textbook grew out of an earlier Outlines of European History, co-authored for medieval and modern Europe with James Harvey Robinson.
Let me stop y'all, because he's saying stuff that certain scholars understand, but if we ain't in the scholarly community, we might not understand the little things he's trying to say. He used a term. What is a term? It's a term that you don't hear no place but in schools. My wife cleaning and shampooing, so y'all hear that. We just got to deal with the noise in the back. But the term was textbook. See? See how he did that? He already knew. We assumed he was talking about children or teaching the youth when he started talking about textbooks. But if we can't pick up on that, he gonna reiterate it a little bit later by bringing his point home. But listen to how they drop this knowledge, and you gotta be hearing what they saying.
From Breasted's later textbook outline. Breasted's textbook grew out of an earlier Outlines of European History, co-authored for medieval and modern Europe with James Harvey Robinson. Robinson's text loosely continued Blashfield's sequence after the fall of Rome. This is Blashfield's mural around the dome here. And after Rome comes Islam, the Middle Ages, Renaissance Italy, Gutenberg's Germany, Columbus's Spain, Shakespeare's England, Revolutionary France, and so on. Blashfield's scheme cries out for gender analysis too. We don't have time for that tonight, but Egypt, Rome, Islam, Germany, Spain, and America are represented as men, and Judea, Greece, the Middle Ages, Italy, England, and France as women. In the 1920s, Blashfield's, Breasted's, and Robinson's worldview crystallized into the standard Western civilization course in U.S. colleges.
What did I say? What did he just say? See, he breaking all these, how all these dudes was racist, and then they got their theories crystallized into the standard Western civilization courses in colleges, okay? And so now we seeing how these first founders was all racist. They wrote about their racist theories, and then they got them pushed forward in universities where in order to get a degree, you got to submit to these theories.
Blashfield's scheme cries out for gender analysis too, and as men, Western civilization course in U.S. colleges. As for race, there's no hint that Blashfield's America or his ancient Egypt was anything but white. Indeed, all his figures anticipate Breasted's history of civilization as the triumph of his great white race. Blashfield did interpose Islam between Rome and the Middle Ages in his painting. This represents Western civ's usual nod to Islam for passing lost Greek learning on to Europe. China, India, and sub-Saharan Africa are off the mental map until Europe's age of discovery, and Egypt under Islam drops out of sight into an alien Orient. I took Western Civ as a freshman and taught it for a dozen years when I first started teaching. Sometimes it came close to its caricature in the late 20th century culture wars as chronicles of dead white men.
Yeah, he do got jokes. I like, I'm a rapper too, and the way he dissing people is like, I'm storing some of his disses like, damn, he dropped the blood. And sometimes if you can sneak one on somebody, they don't even know they got dissed, you know what I'm saying? I hate to take this to battle rap, but yeah, he got bars.
In 1980, I strongly supported the decision of my department at Georgia State University to replace Western Civ with world history. Vignette 3, Blackening the Egyptians. Oops.
This part good.
Given the insistence with which scholars of breasted stature proclaimed ancient Egypt a white triumph, counterclaims of it for black Africans should come as no surprise. This debate captured national attention again in the 1980s as Afrocentrists such as Sheikh Anta Diop, an older Senegalese scholar, and Molefi Asante attacked Eurocentric histories head-on. Meanwhile, white backlash against the civil rights movement and the 1960s radicalism had helped elect President Reagan. In 1987, Martin Bernal's Black Athena, the Afro-Asiatic roots of classical civilization, made him a partial ally of the Afrocentrists. Classicist Mary Lefkowitz soon rallied a conservative countercharge. The echoes of this fracas still reverberate, sometimes with productive scholarly results. Vignette 3 centers on...
So let's get this clear. This is another scholar at Harvard not saying that Martin Bernal's book is pseudo. That's what I just got out of that. He just said this fracas led to something that could lead to something with good scholarly results. You feel me? Let's just keep it clear. He didn't just say Bernal's work was pseudo, and he's a Harvard professor. But let's dig in on this Du Bois.
W.E.B. Du Bois, The Negro, published in 1915, the year before Breasted's Ancient Times. Du Bois did not have to start from scratch. This book by Scott Trafton explores Du Bois's 19th century predecessors. Du Bois and Breasted both saw Egypt as the fount of civilization, and they also had other things in common. Born in the 1960s, like Breasted and Reisner, Du Bois graduated from Harvard in 1890, a year after Reisner.
So Du Bois went to school with Reisner. He graduated a year after him. These is lugs, bruh. So now we see why Du Bois was so into writing about Kemet too, because he went to school with that fool. Look at this. Look how this is breaking down. And a lot of the stuff we didn't know, and we really wasn't even looking at none of Du Bois's works on Kemet, but he said a lot while he was funking with Reisner and them, who was a dude who graduated a year before him from the same school.
Du Bois was doing his MA at Harvard. Breasted was earning his at Yale. German research universities were riding high as models for American higher education, and all three men leapt at the chance to go on to the University of Berlin. Whether or not Du Bois ever met Breasted and Reisner, they might well have passed each other on Unter den Linden in Berlin. Race, however, had dealt them very different hands. Breasted came home with his Berlin Egyptology PhD to a career at the University of Chicago. Du Bois was only months away from his Berlin PhD in sociology when the trustees of the John F. Slater Fund back home cut off his German fellowship, hoping instead that, quote, "you will devote your talent and learning to the good of the colored race," end quote.
Oh, you heard how they did him, bro? Dang, that was cold. I just felt for Du Bois right there. You feel me? They cut off his funding right before he was about to get his PhD and told him to focus on black people.
As Du Bois's biographer, David Levering Lewis, put it, quote, "black PhDs from Germany were not a priority in Booker T. Washington's America." end quote. Passing the Statue of Liberty on his way home, Du Bois wrote, quote, "I dropped suddenly back into nigger-hating America." He had to settle for a mere Harvard PhD, then divided his career between
So just to be clear, he was way smarter than them because he went out there, tried to get his other PhD, which take 8 years. Right before it was over, they cut it off, and he came back and went to Harvard and finished and got his PhD there. See how they be saying you got to be twice as smart to be black?
between scholarship and political activism, mainly at historically black Atlanta University and the NAACP. A passing reference in Breasted's Ancient Times to, quote, "our grandfathers in New England," suggests that his envisioned high school readers were white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Du Bois's publisher, the Home University of Modern Knowledge, targeted self-improving readers who had not been to college. At a time when African history and geography hardly figured in college courses, the Negro surveyed not only Africa, but also North and South America. It cited a specialized report by Reisner, but had a complaint about Breasted, quote, "The works of Breasted and Petrie, Maspero, Budge, and Newberry and Garstang are standard books on Egypt. They mention the Negro, but incidentally and often slightingly," end quote. In a statement that might have been written yesterday, Du Bois declared, "In fact, it is generally recognized today that no scientific definition of race is possible," end quote. Although he sometimes identified himself as a mulatto, by including all mixed groups in his definition of Negro.
So we can't even act like we that raw because these is the real Amara squads. I mean, I'm talking about Du Bois and them was at Harvard fighting with these other. They was just trying to set up Egyptology, and he was throwing monkey wrenches way back then. We know what side of the Marcus Garvey argument Du Bois was on, but we're not really focusing on that right now. And a lot of the other things that we talk about Du Bois, we simply focus on his hand in throwing a monkey wrench in the whitening of Egypt. He was throwing monkey wrenches.
He made ancient Egypt a Negro civilization, whether or not its people differed biologically from those further south. In 1948, he wrote, quote, "One must remember that Egyptology, starting in 1821, grew up during the African slave trade, the Sugar Empire, and the Cotton Kingdom. Few scholars during the period dared to associate the Negro race with humanity, much less with civilization," end quote. In 1915, in The Negro, he wrote,
So you telling me, is he talking about Chief X now? Because they the ones doing exactly this. Let's see who Du Bois talking about that's out here teaching today.
"much less with civilization," end quote. End quote. Although he sometimes identified himself as a mulatto, by including all mixed groups in his definition of Negro, he made ancient Egypt a Negro civilization, whether or not its people differed biologically from those further south. In 1948, he wrote, quote,
Let's listen to this quote.
"One must remember that Egyptology, starting in 1821, grew up during the African slave trade, the Sugar Empire, and the Cotton Kingdom. Few scholars during the period dared to associate the Negro race with humanity, much less with civilization," end quote. In 1915, in The Negro, he wrote, "Of what race, then, were the Egyptians? They were certainly not white in any modern sense of that word, neither in color nor in physical measurement, in hair nor countenance, in language nor social customs."
So was Du Bois a pseudo? Because it seemed like anybody who say what he's saying in the conscious community is now called a fraud and a pseudo. But yeah, people gonna go back attacking people. They gonna attack every elder they can. They gonna say derogatory things about every predecessor that they had because they are the one with the truth. sitting wherever they at in whatever environment they let you experience through the camera. You feel me? They the one with the truth. None of these people before them was correct.
They stood in relationship nearest the Negro in earliest times, and then gradually through the infiltration of Mediterranean and Semitic elements became what would be described in America as a light mulatto stock of octoroons and quadroons, end quote. Du Bois also struck out at the school who asserted that all advanced civilization in pre-modern Africa was due to white Hamites rather than to Negroes from further south, quote.
Oh, hold on. This is exactly what other people are saying. He just said white Hamites. Hamite is Ham. All right. He basically saying people from North Africa. But he's saying it in old days terms. Now, who are the people saying that all of this stuff it wasn't no black people in the top of in North Africa? Who are the people today promulgating these theories on YouTube? And who fighting against it?
Was due to white Hamites rather than to Negroes.
A white Hamite. Basically, that's a model. They don't say Hamites now, so they talking about the Semitic people of Northern Africa. You feel me? But he's using, if you've seen earlier in the video, I showed the other scholar who just basically broke down that originally Afro-Asiatic was Hamito-Semitic. Hamito-Semitic is like white Hamites. You feel me? And he said avoid that term however you can. But he's breaking it down, and I don't even got to do much because he's just telling you, whoever telling y'all that the ancient Egyptians wasn't black is promoting old, white, racist theories. This is a Harvard presentation right now.
Negroes from further south, quote. Ancient and modern mingling of Semite and Negro has given rise to the term Hamite, under the cover of which millions of Negroids have been characteristically transferred to the white race by some eager scientists.
God, everything we address, he is dismantling right after that. Come on, man. Let me go back a little bit so I hope I ain't throwing nobody up. Listen, look at this.
And modern mingling of Semite and Negro has given rise to the term Hamite, under the cover of which millions of Negroids have been characteristically transferred to the white race by.
So he basically saying, oh, you took heck of black people, called them North Africans, and transferred them to the white race. And now you saying wasn't nobody black in North Africa. Y'all hear that? He just saying this scholastically. I'm saying it in layman's terms. Y'all then went and took hella black people from North Africa and somehow included them into the white people science, but with your little pseudoscience is what he breaking down. Look, now let's listen and see if I'm wrong.
And modern mingling of Semite and Negro has given rise to the term Hamite, under the cover of which millions of Negroids have been characteristically transferred to the white race by some eager scientists, end quote. For evidence of ancient Egyptians as Negroes, Du Bois drew on Herodotus and Volney's description of the Giza Sphinx as Negroid. He said that the 12
now that's where we would part. But he was doing what he could do back in the day. Ain't none of us going to say, oh, look at the Sphinx, it looked like it's black. That got threw out in the 70s. But Du Bois was pulling that on their ass in the 30s and 40s or the 50s when he said that last document was written. You feel me?
12th dynasty pharaohs were pharaohs, quote, whose Negro descent is plainly evident, end quote. The Hyksos may have been black. New Kingdom founder Ahmose was mulatto, and his queen, Ahmose Nefertari, a negress, and Tutmosis III and Hatshepsut had, quote, a strong Negroid countenance. He made much of the black Cushite or Nubian.
Let's just get this clear. So you won't act like no, who got Medu Neter on their documents in 1911? Who carrying on the tradition and who pseudo? Come on, y'all, don't fall for it. Don't care how enduring nobody is. We like these people. I like my opponents, dude. I'm telling y'all. I'll go fishing with some of them. I wouldn't go fishing with a lot of people, but I love to crack a brew. I crack a brew with Chief X and kick it. You feel me? And not talk about none of this, and I don't know if he fish or nothing. So I'm saying I ain't got no animus against nobody who opposing our theories, but I'm asking you simple questions. Who got Medu Neter and images of black pharaohs on their documents way back in the early 1900s? Whose side am I on and whose side is they on? Like, come on, man. This is a white man showing you this.
Pharaohs of Egypt of the 25th dynasty, whom the Greeks called Ethiopians, quote, those with burnt faces. From Napata in today's Sudan, these Nubians conquered Egypt and ruled Thebes until driven south again by the Assyrians. Back in Napata and then further south at Meroe, their state lasted well into Roman times. This 1911 cover of the NAACP's The Crisis magazine, which Du Bois edited, featured, quote, one of the black kings of the Upper Nile. The relief of this particular Nubian pharaoh is from this ruined pyramid here, number 17.
He's skipping over a lot of things we need to know when we're looking at this. He's showing you Nubian pyramids. He just skipped right down to it because I think that the people, maybe his students, or he assumes everybody already know what they're looking at. But these are just Nubian pyramids right here in Meroe.
He's got the tops knocked off of them by treasure hunters, some of them in pretty modern times. The relief of this particular pharaoh, then, that we just saw from that pyramid.
Hey, I want to say that YouTube shit real quick. I don't know. I guess I got to bow down and say like and subscribe and follow me and click the notification buttons because I'm trying to build this channel. I ain't saying it for no other reason. That's why everybody else saying it. But I'm definitely not going to say it 3 times because that's the new YouTube pseudo stuff to do. Why everybody saying everything 3 times? Like, come on, man. Anyway.
The 60 rulers of ancient Egypt selected for listing on the Cairo Egyptian Museum of 1902 facade included other foreign pharaohs, Libyans, Persians, the Greek Ptolemies, and the Romans, but it skipped over the Nubian 25th dynasty. Come as no surprise. The inscription.
I messed up, but I'm gonna get back to there. Again, I know we all listening and we all paying attention, but be clear how he said this presentation, when they put all the stuff in the museums, they intentionally skipped over the Nubian 25th dynasty. They didn't want to show no black pharaohs in the museum. Trust me, listen again. Man, what I just done, man? Hold
later
on.
For
Here it
Afrocentrists. And had Egyptians designed the museum plaques in the late 1940s when they were campaigning for post-independence Egyptian Sudanese unification, they would surely have included the 25th dynasty Nubian pharaohs. Also note, by the way, that the inscriptions here are in Latin on this 1902 museum. And
so you see, he's showing it. Look, it go dynasties 18 to 22, and then they go to 26 just to avoid showing black people, bruh. But you'll be wondering, what happened in these dynasties while you walking through the museum? This is the craziness. This how far they go with it.
And this came naturally to Egypt's British and French colonizer. But no state school in Arabic-speaking Egypt then taught Latin, and its ruling family still spoke Turkish.
And that's another bomb he just tried to drop on the under. They put this up there and nobody even could read Latin, and they put it on the museum just to codify it, bruh, on some white shit. He just told you that. Nobody at the time even taught Latin. So why you put this on the museum in Latin and nobody could even make it out? Oh, they was just they was throwing you for the okie doke.
Finally, Du Bois's The Negro staked out racial claims as sweeping as breastids, but in reverse. Quote, that Negro peoples were the beginners of civilization along the Ganges, the Euphrates, and the Nile seems proven.
See, he attacked him as a blackologist right there. He just told him all your solid work. Then he said, but unfortunately or whatever, he got some outrageous claims too, because now he trying to go stretching all up into the Tigris, into the Euphrates. You feel me? He's just saying it different and more scholastically. Look, like, come on, man. He like, that boy he fell off a little bit too, because he was trying to counteract Breasted's racist claims.
Breastids, but in reverse. Quote, that Negro peoples were the beginners of civilization along the Ganges, the Euphrates, and the Nile seems proven. Early Babylon was founded by a Negroid race. The Assyrians showed a distinct Negroid strain, and early Egypt was predominantly Negro, end quote.
He basically was like, I'm gonna do that shit too. You about to say everything, or I'm gonna say all your stuff was black. He blackologied him, but he wasn't a blackologist. You feel me? He just did that the same way Diops did that to the white dudes. Oh, y'all gonna say that this mean the black land? But he gonna determine it with people. I'm gonna say it mean the black people. You feel me? It's a press on your logic to make your logic fold.
Vignette 4, Sons of the Pharaohs, Modern Egyptians' Perceptions of Race and Ancient Egypt. My title here is derived from this century-old book. For most Egyptians, asking if Egyptians are or were black or white is a non-starter.
Do y'all feel him? He like, you ain't about to come out nobody. You not about to get the conversation popping like that. That's some stupid stuff to ask. That's a non-starter. Don't walk up to me with no non-starters, bro, talking about is Egyptians black or white.
Religion has been far more critical than race in their debates about pharaonic heritage. In the Quran, as in the Bible, Moses defies a tyrannical pagan pharaoh to lead believers in the one true God in their exodus from Egypt. This book cover, Pharaoh in the Quran, depicts the tyrant as aghast at the miracle of turning Aaron's staff into a serpent. Here, the Quranic quotation, "Lo, Pharaoh aggrandized himself on earth," accompanies apocalyptic lightning over the pyramids, archetypical symbols of ancient Egypt. For some Muslims, paganism poisons all pre-Islamic antiquity, and denouncing any ruler as Pharaoh is the ultimate insult. Most Egyptians, however, take pride in the pharaonic civilization that dazzled the world. Similarly, African Americans under slavery and then under Jim Crow were torn between identifying with Hebrew bondage in Egypt, "Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go," and the lure of Egypt as a land of wisdom and wonders with which they felt an African kinship.
See how white people could just wrap us up in a sentence, bruh? That's everybody in the chat. Right there. Everybody on YouTube. He just put it in a sentence. Everybody on Sonetta TV was in that sentence. All of us, we want to take us out that he just put it in a well eloquently said sentence. Come on, man. Let's keep it a buck. We should not even be able to be surmised that easily. Because tell me which one of us is outside of what he just said.
Egyptians, however, take pride in the pharaonic civilization that dazzled the world. Similarly, African Americans under slavery and then under Jim Crow.
But let's stop, because he went back on y'all. He giving up lugs. He said under slavery and Jim Crow. He didn't say right now. Come on, bro. Listen to this. He talking about these debates we having right now where we torn between identifying with the Hebrew bondage in Egypt or identifying with the Pharaoh went all the way back to Jim Crow and even in slavery, bruh. And he proving it by giving you Du Bois's comments on that. Like, bruh, y'all, it's 2021. This argument y'all been having since slavery. So maybe he's qualifying some of the Hebrews who's saying that it was people coming off the slave ships talking about we Hebrews. But what he just qualified for us is it was people in slavery and in Jim Crow saying that they had some affinity to ancient Egyptians. I'm just making that clear.
We're torn between identifying with Hebrew bondage in Egypt, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go, and the lure of Egypt as a land of wisdom and wonders with which they felt an African kinship. Egypt, says an Arabic proverb, is the mother of the world. In the Quran, as in the Bible, Egypt was where Joseph rose up to become Pharaoh's trusted vizier, and where the world's most famous refugees, Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, found welcoming asylum from King Herod. This book cover even seems to suggest that the Holy Family enjoyed the sound and light show at the pyramid.
I can't wait to ask somebody, who was the world's most popular refugees? And why was they allowed to lay their head? We talking about cats be having warrants, bruh. Can't even come to your house. You don't want nobody with no warrants at your house. These was the world's biggest refugees ever. And he just bust that in a little sentence like they was kicking it in Kemet. They got allowed to kick it in Kemet while the whole world was looking for them. In Nate's story, he always preamble it with this as a biblical tale, keeping it in the proper context. And look, this ain't no appeal to authority. We've been telling y'all this for days, for years, with our own research in the Medu Neture. But now he just telling you all the black people who've been saying what we've been saying before. And he on our side of the story. By the way, he discrediting the racism in, it's called Anxieties About Race in Egypt, in Egyptomania.
Pyramids is the mother of the world. In the Quran, as in the Bible, Egypt was where Joseph rose up to become Pharaoh's trusted vizier, and where the world's most famous refugees, Mary, Jesus, and Joseph, found welcoming asylum from King Herod. This book cover even seems to suggest that the Holy Family enjoyed the sound and light show at the pyramids. Many modern Coptic Egyptians are proud that the latest form of the very language of ancient Egypt survives in their Coptic scriptures. If the pharaohs are really the anathema that some fundamentalists would like to make them, would Egypt's government have dared put Tutankhamun on its £1 coin, or to call their international teams in this football-mad country the pharaohs? So how do modern Egyptians deal with race? Islam asserts the equality of all believers. Until slavery's abolition in the late 19th century, slaves in Egypt, as in ancient Greece and Rome, came in all colors. And there was never a legal color line, as in South Africa or the southern U.S.
Why is he beating them up like this? I want to see somebody debate him. Because he's just telling you, bruh. Slaves came in all colors, dude. Don't let nobody be in there telling you they took Nubians as slaves, because that was that old stuff that he already dismantled, that was wrote by Breasted, and then it got written into Western civilization courses about, again, see, we got to learn about abolitionist literature and pro-slavery literature. Once we learn about that, we start to see whose arguments are on the side of pro-slavery literature. The arguments that the people who my opponents are giving us now are actually sourced in pro-slavery literature. As they breaking it down for you, it was all in order to vilify the slavery that was happening then, so you couldn't find nothing good that the people you demonized had done on earth. So no, it was slavery all the time. There was always slaves, and Egypt had slaves, and the black people, that's what they got to do with Egypt. They were slaves in order to do the Bible.
Yet, although Egyptians often deny any color prejudice, the experience of Sudanese and of Egyptian Nubians, who often work in Cairo as doormen and servants.
Chefrin, where you at, Chefrin? Because that show you we doing this homework, Chef. Because what did he just say? You just said we were pseudo for coming up with a term that we came up on our own, which was called Egyptian Nubians, my brother. Right? Tell the truth, Chef. I'm about to give y'all the call-in number. Hold on. Tell the truth. You just said we were pseudo for coming up, that you gonna beat us up about this Egyptian Nubian thing, right? But he clearly saying Egyptian Nubians as if you should already know about them, bruh.
Yet, although Egyptians often deny any color prejudice, the experience of Sudanese and of Egyptian Nubians, who often work in Cairo as doormen and servants, indicates otherwise.
Now,
Egypt's 19th century conquest of the Sudan was interrupted by Britain's occupation of itself in 1882 and by the Mahdist revolt in the Sudan. After Kitchener's reconquest of the Sudan in 1898, Britain dominated the Anglo-Egyptian condominium over it. Up to the very eve of Sudanese independence in 1956, Egyptians proclaiming the unity of the Nile Valley pushed for the union of the two countries. Back in 1910, rejecting comparisons with the European scramble that had carved up the rest of Africa, Egyptian writer Ahmed Lutfi Sayyid downplayed racial differences. Quote, "Who are the sons of the Nile? They are those who live in that distant torrid region and whose color is black, and those who live in the temperate zone and whose color, as you see, is somewhere between white and black. It would be senseless were skin color to cut off blood relationships between two brothers or to cause the estrangement of two partners. For the Sudanese is an Egyptian and the Egyptian is a Sudanese, by virtue of their being brothers who owe their common father, the Nile, their existence, their proliferation, and their wealth."
I love having these quotes in a European voice, bruh. It's just fun. You know what I'm saying? He like ain't hating, he ain't hiding nothing. He wanted to use that quote. He could have left that quote out of his work. But he like, look, man, I need to bring something new to the table, and this is what I'm doing.
But behind this brotherly facade, Egyptians asserted right of conquest going back to the pharaohs and an Islamizing and civilizing mission in Bilad Sudan, the land of the blacks, where slaving raids were justified as jihad against pagans.
And let's keep the context he in. Now we're in Arab times right now, basically. So because he said Bilal al-Sudan, so we should know that that only got that name after Arabs invaded Egypt. And I do feel, the relegation, we understand that modern day Egyptians relegate Nubians to the Nubian Egyptians to the lowest caste system on their society, because that's what's going on Earth. We getting it too in America. They want black to be the lowest caste system in society. So what makes you think they would not be rocking with that on any place else that black people are there if they're white and they're seeing that white supremacy works? You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that the Arabs are white, but they're still benefiting off systems of white supremacy with the whole sub-Saharan or Bilal al-Sudan is the same thing. But they clearly told you, I mean, the source before this clearly was just like, dude, these is all brothers and sisters. But let's see what the scholar concludes.
Two Egyptian cartoons from an Arabic periodical of the 1920s illustrate racial prejudice. Here, colonial ruler Lord Lloyd has a demure, white, aristocratic Egypt on one arm and a sexualized Sudanese savage on the other. Here, Sudan is a dark little urchin.
Whoever is like, why he call her a savage? Nah, bro, he was talking about how the white dude was trying to portray that in this. Look, you feel me? How she's trying to be portrayed as compared to, but he still got them both on his arm. Like, that's how they was doing, huh? Crazy.
Trying to escape British John Bull to join her big sister Egypt, again a fashionable, light-skinned, perhaps Turkish lady. In the background, the pyramids proclaim which side of the fence is civilized Egypt, while thatched huts represent primitive Sudan. The Arabic abid for slaves is sometimes used as an insult to all blacks, with all the sting of our English N-word. Last June, an Egyptian diplomat in Nairobi caused an uproar with an alleged Arabic aside calling sub-Saharan Africans dogs and slaves. After 1945.
So what case is he making right now? He telling you the Egyptians over there is racist right now against black people. In case you don't know what the case he's making towards their credibility on the subject, you feel me? He's making a case that they're racist right now to this day against black people, in case we ain't getting it. You feel me? I just wanted to be clear on that.
Egypt campaigned at the UN to regain the Sudan, opened an Institute of Sudan Studies at Cairo University, and published a book, The Unity of the Nile Valley. In it, Egyptologist Ahmed Bedawi and classical historian Ibrahim Nossi recounted the pharaoh's southern expansion from the first dynasty on. Of the Nubian 25th dynasty, they wrote, quote, "As this kingdom was built by Egyptians and was a reproduction of the Ammonite theocracy at Thebes, it is therefore justifiable to call it the Egyptian kingdom of the south. These rulers," quote, "decided that the time was ripe to free the northern valley from its usurpers," end quote. The later Greek Ptolemies, ruling from Alexandria, in contrast, may have eschewed Nubian conquests out of fear that, quote, "reviving the past glory of the great Nile kingdom might infuse in the nation of the Nile a new buoyant spirit that would uproot the Greek conquerors."
See, you gotta catch one. Nah, I ain't letting that one pass, y'all, bruh. Did you just hear he snitching? Hold on, we gotta bring that back. I'm trying to learn how to go back without going back 20 years, man. Let me see. Listen to this quote, bruh. Don't be letting these quotes sneak by you like they ain't bombs. I'm gonna break this one down, listen.
Greek Ptolemies, ruling from Alexandria, in contrast, may have eschewed Nubian conquests out of fear that, quote, "revive."
Look, he eschewed Nubian conquest. Listen, y'all, I'm a wordsmith. He eschewed Nubian conquest out of fear that he reviving the past glory of the great Nile
Reviving
kingdom.
the past glory of the great Nile kingdom might infuse in the nation of the Nile a new buoyant spirit that would uproot the Greek conquerors.
So they basically said that the Nubians was the old ancient spirit of Kemet, and we don't want to revive that by running up on them, because it might put a new spirit in the people that make them want to get us up out of here. Tell me that ain't what that quote say. If anybody know, we all
Greek
got...
Ptolemies, ruling from Alexandria, in contrast, may have eschewed Nubian conquests out of fear that, quote, reviving the past glory of the great Nile kingdom might infuse in the nation of the Nile a new buoyant spirit that would uproot the Greek conquerors.
Wow, bruh, come on, man. They can't even play with this. That's why the Ptolemies didn't even want to go into Nubia. And we got the quote. Why? Because they didn't want the Nubians to come bring back that Nubian spirit by their own words and get us up out of here. I'm bringing that back again.
Contrast, may have eschewed Nubian conquests out of fear that, quote, reviving the past glory of the great Nile kingdom might infuse in the nation of the Nile a new buoyant spirit that would uproot the Greek conquerors. Only months before the Egyptian army overthrew King Farouk in 1952, this postage stamp proclaimed him King of Egypt and Sudan, with a map of the Nile Valley, including Sudan, Egypt, and part of Ethiopia.
Whoever Pure Black is asking somebody, so you're saying 0 Nubians could speak Medu Neter. If someone's making that claim, please watch this whole video from the beginning, because Dr. Christopher Ehret already broke down that the language didn't even develop, the whole language family didn't even develop in no place. He said where it did develop was in the Horn of Africa. Okay, so we got to deal with what these scholars are saying and not just be acting like discrediting them for whatever reasons. See, we discredited them when they was lying and they was racist. When somebody come in 100 and they giving the facts, what grounds do we have to discredit these people on?
After the revolution, the new regime kept up Egypt's claim with a similar map and the inclusion of the Sudanese man on the right alongside the light-skinned Egyptian soldier and woman. Vignette 5, Nazi anti-Semitism, Egyptology, and Harvard's missed opportunity. During the 19th century, anti-Semitism, once mainly religious, became increasingly racialized. Nott and Gliddon's 1854 Types of Mankind declared Thutmose I strikingly Hellenic, but his queen absolutely Jewish. 80 years later, Du Bois, visiting Germany in the year of the 1936 Berlin Olympics, wrote that to Nazis, the Jew was the Negro. Nazi effects on Egyptology are finally getting the serious scholarly examination they deserve. Thomas Geertsen spoke here in 2015 at the Semitic Museum on Queen Nefertiti in Berlin, anti-Semitism, and the spoils of war. My fifth vignette highlights the tragic last years of Ludwig Borchardt, the discoverer of the famous bust of Nefertiti. Born in the same 1860s generation as Breasted, Reisner, and Du Bois, Borchardt, too, studied in Berlin under Adolf Ehrmann. In 1907, He became the founding director in Cairo of the Imperial German Institute for Egyptian Archaeology. In 1912, he uncovered at Tel El Amarna the bust of Nefertiti, queen of the so-called heretic pharaoh Akhenaten. In still controversial circumstances, a French official of Egypt's Antiquities Service cleared the bust for export to Berlin. When Borchardt's Institute in Cairo, sequestered by the British during World War I, reopened after the war, the dispute over the return of the bust of Nefertiti blocked further German excavations until 1929.
Oh, I didn't know the screen was black, my bad.
The cover of my recent book comes from a German cartoon on King Fuad, the King of Egypt's visit to Berlin in 1929. It takes an Orientalist jab at both Egypt's demand for the return of the bust and Britain's holding Egypt in semi-colonial bondage, despite having declared her independent in 1922. King Fuad pleads, "Come back to Egypt with me, beautiful Nefertiti, and I'll make you my favorite wife in the harem." Nefertiti sniffs. "Out of the question, my little Fuad. I'm better off in Berlin in a glass case than in Cairo as make-believe queen by England's grace and favor."
All right, I'm going to stop him right there. And anybody who wants to finish the video, it's called Anxieties About Race. And yeah, we're going to post this in the chat just so people can have it. Because I wanted us to see certain things coming out of their mouth. But I want us all to know we don't make appeals to authority. We don't make appeals to authority. I ain't even showed y'all none of the stuff we've seen to come to our conclusions. We just been telling y'all what we've been telling y'all, and cats don't want to hear it. So I'm like, okay, they must have not experienced a lot of this stuff we're experiencing. And I mean, one of the main people I want y'all to deal with, I ain't even showing y'all yet because I'm trying to get an interview with him because he was a former online professor of mine in a short 6-week course the Amin Ra Squad took, certain members of the Amin Ra Squad took on nubiology. And so let me share my screen real quick. I ain't showing you nothing, bruh. This ain't nothing. But I just want to show you, we just don't be bumping our damn gums like that, like all the way. Like the things that I learned in this course that we all took, it wasn't anybody could take these type of courses. The free online courses from university professors that talk about stuff, but how many of us do it? How many of us could show you that they actually passed a course in what they talking about? Even a high school course, even a course at a youth center or something. Cats ain't even got past no certification and no level of knowledge of what they doing. Exactly. You could go right on. So this is a course we took on Coursera. And you should look into it. It was the Art and Archaeology of Ancient Nubia under Professor Peter Lacovera, okay? And I reached out to Lacovera this morning. Hopefully he get back at me because I want to bring him out to say a lot of the things he was teaching us in his class. But you could get his book, again called The Art and Archaeology of Ancient Nubia. I lost one of them. It's a $70 book. I lost one of them, and I'm about to cop another one. Because either somebody took my book because there's so many jewels in that book, or I just lost it. You know what I'm saying? But let me show you. I mean, I just want to, I don't need to show y'all that. I mean, I want to. Let me see if I type Nubia in my computer. Let's see if I just type Nubia in my computer, what pop up. Because I don't know how else I would have saved that thing. But I ain't even tripping. It ain't even worth nothing. It's a 6-week course that any of us could take. But if I ask any of us have they took it, everybody gonna say no, but members of the Amin Ra Squad. And so then what else you got? What is you going on? You going off Wiki and your own books with no type of mentorship or with no type of tutelage with the things that you're trying to deal with. You can come to some bad conclusions because scholarship already now, I mean, academia going over materials, and now the scholars are reorganizing and reclassifying the materials that you're using as source material. So if scholars is taking books that was like, you know what, this used to be the standard for this field, but now we've come to the conclusion that these books should not be held as a standard for these field based on these 3 issues that we bring up. If we don't know those issues, if we don't know what's going on, then what? We're going to be using them books. And then furthermore, if a lot of, is Wiki doing much to address everything that these scholars are telling us about these racist theories, or or do you go Google something on Wiki and get sources from them old racist books? Yes or no? You get sources on Wiki from them old racist ass books because they still doing the work in Egyptology to fix it. Once the work is done, then it'll be put out and revealed like the scholars are telling us. Then the people who don't really follow the information as close as the Amun-Ra Squad or the Magi Archers or myself, period, they'll have a chance to get updated on that information once it's peer reviewed and all that. But we're telling you what's happening in academia right now. And so I just showed videos that just dismantle how all these racist theories came into being. I showed another video by Christopher Eric that showed that the language is developed on the Horn of Africa. And while he was making that point, he was just saying so much stuff about why do we even think it ain't an African culture, because it's on the continent of Africa. So when we want to define a culture, I just told a story the other day about how when I went to Brazil for the first time, when we got to Rio, it was getting kind of rough, and I'm street smart, and I don't want to get robbed. And they was taking stuff that wasn't really valuable to us. Like my partner got a little rock chain that didn't even look valuable, snatched off his neck. And when I told this story, I realized this was one of my first times actually trying to assimilate to another culture on some shalom, on some star me out, on some I don't want to get whooped on, you feel me, out here. And so in my brain, I'm like, I'm definitely about to run these streets because I'm out here, so I got to figure out how to do it safe. So first thing, I was down dressing, and you know, I probably was like, I wore that yesterday, I'm about to wear that again. Just on some knowledge stuff because I didn't want to be too clean, but they still was seeing through me. I'm not talking, y'all know what it is. I'm just talking to dudes like me who know what it is. If you don't know what that is, then you just ain't street smart like that. Like, forget it. But anyway, so because I didn't want to be shining while everybody was looking like they barely could even, you know what I'm saying, get their stuff done. You feel me? But it didn't even come down to that. Because what it finally came down to, just like I told people, they would not speak to me in Portuguese no matter what I did. I would walk up and everybody be black as me, bro, looking like the hood in Brazil. Don't let nobody fool you, bro. One of my big homies from the favelas of Brazil, MV Bill. What's up, MV Bill? Somebody tell MV Bill I said what's up, because that's a big boss in the favelas. Brought me through the favelas, all guns out, nothing, bro. I'm talking about, I seen 13-year-olds with extendos and they pulling me up. But I ain't gonna go too far off a tangent because I was trying to make a point. I did not get accepted into their culture. They did not, even though they seen I look black as them, they kept on could tell. They could tell. And I was like, I'm gonna win this one. And I told, just like I told y'all on the other show the other day, I walked in the bathroom because I noticed it. Because I seen this dude walking across the street, looked like a brother just like me. And I was like, what's different? And then I noticed and I was like, he ain't got no socks on. Then I looked around the juice bar. I was drinking my sucrose. That's juice down there. Drinking my sucrose, look around this juice bar. Nobody got on socks, bruh. I looked down at myself. I got on some high water socks down there coming up over my ankles. So I instantly knew, okay, this is the last identifier that they got that I'm not Portuguese, that I'm not Brazilian, I'm sorry, didn't mean to say that. That I'm not Brazilian and that I don't speak Portuguese. You feel me? And so when I went in the bath, I sat my juice down, I finished my juice, went in the bathroom, took off my socks, put them in my pocket. So I tell y'all right now, I've been in Brazil walking around with funky socks in my pocket. But I was safe, 100. When I walked out, this what happened. When I walked out the juice bar, somebody hit me with my first Portuguese sentence, a brother. And then I was stuck in another part that is just go into your manhood. Because now I'm like, oh, now the onus is on me to reveal that I'm an American. Because they finally start talking to me in Portuguese. You feel me? So I was like, shit. Now I'm in another conundrum because he said something and I don't know what it means. So if I reveal I don't know what it means, now I'm back to square A. They know I'm an American. You feel me? And so I was like this. You got to take the hard route, Smash. Do the angry face. And anybody say something to you, give them I'm not having a good day look. I swear. And that's how it worked through the whole. I was all through Rio. All through Rio that I just told you about my homie MV Bill. Bruh, ask anybody in Hyro, bruh. I'm telling you. This dude was, well, I ain't gonna go there because we on another show. I was making that point to say that linguistically, I was not even being allowed into their culture. You see what I mean? They wasn't even about to start talking to me in their language, even though I looked just like them. I had one cultural identifier that allowed them to know that I wasn't from there. And we do that on all kind of subcultures inside of America, bruh. Somebody had a hat tilted just a little bit the wrong way, and you be like, suspicious of whether he was from where you from or not. Tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? So we know style and we know the differences too, but it depending on where you at, those little small nuances make a difference. And so obviously if we take this back to older and ancient context, we could also assume that language is one of the first cultural items, bro. I mean, come on. Language is one of the first cultures. I also told the story about Williams Leidendorff, Alexander Leidendorff, who had the 35,000 acres in California in 1844, and what he had to do to get them. He had to convert his religion to Catholicism. He had to learn Spanish, and he had to go live on the land. 3 things. He just assimilated through a culture. This is before church was separated from state, so they forced him to convert to Catholicism. It was the Mexican government, and I don't know what they do about separating church from state or not, but this was in the time periods we talking about. And so I'm only drawing from these other sources and histories to show how cultural assimilation actually could take place. You see what I'm saying? In that regard, look, I'm gonna put this number up to see if anybody want to mess with it. I ain't doing the Zoom chat because them things could go for 24 hours, boy. We did one. We had a Zoom that we broke the record, bro. We broke the record. We was on the YouTube block grinding. I done seen 2 or 3 outfits in one live stream, bro. That's because Cass was going to sleep, waking up, coming back, going to work, and still was on the same live stream. I ain't gonna get too far off the topic. I'm gonna keep beating up this Africanity. You know what I'm saying? They thought I made that up. That was the scholar Christopher Aird who made that up, that Africanity. He say, bro, let's bust the Africanity of Egypt, bro. You feel me? And just make them feel so measly. Because they in them old-ass books, bro. They ain't even got no books. I challenge somebody. See, I'm going to make you spend some money today. Pull out 10 books on the subject on the spot. I'm going to do it right now. And before you do your next YouTube video, pull out 10 books on the subject on the spot, bro. You see, I need to pull you into the live. I guarantee you my opponents, I even go as far as to say any opponent of this theory that used to be on the Amin Ra squad and had to leave the Amin Ra squad because of differences ain't got 10 books on the subject. Bet money. They gonna go get them or they gonna PDF them, but nobody could respond with a video showing 10 books on the subject. That's one of my opponents. I'm gonna go get 10 books on the subject right now to make sure y'all know I ain't no pseudo while we go to this commercial. Square dancers.
Yeah, and I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Alright, it's getting kinda dirty in these YouTube streets. The Amin Ra squad, God thinking you dudes weak. Islam or Judaism, where you learn what you dudes teach. The West African rappers slapping with that voodoo speech. All that sub-Saharan terror about a kufu feet. I'm like Norma, that agricultural farmer that grew you wheat for the storehouses. We feed the Hebrews and lead the people when we defeat the feeble. They wanna know, polite rip me off, but Sinetta paid me my money though, that mean he 100. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Nubian with the Jews, I rock the pinky. I think Jesus got to save me, a doctor save me, a Dr. Inky. I cop the copper jewels all blue and red. I'm not the chakra doctor y'all claim woke, but you in bed, you won't pop a chopper, you Grandmaster J. You just talking. Punks turn the other cheek and you will walk away. Y'all gon' have to pardon my Moorish. That's Taharka Bay. I'm on that black African power on my darkest day. And that's my brother Ankh stomping them other punks. We brought them gators to Italy, you loving the Moors. And now I'm teaching from my shrine like Brother Jabari. Scoping the savannah cause I'm on another safari. Tasha K showed us Frank record. Young Pharaoh just losing his mind and y'all can't help him. I know one thing, you're a fool if you're still out here donating to Umar school. That shit through. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh. Look. You showing your hidden colors like Tariq Nasheed. A bunch of pseudo-information I don't think I need. Probably lying on the text, ask Divine or Zion Lex. Just get that microphone ready. With Metal Netta, I'm Stone Jetty. A Ujahu, a Saw Imhotep. Y'all probably timid still on them Bobby Hemmett teachings. I'm in Gozy with the DNA. Cats corny and it's killing me too. You talk that black shit, but you look Arab like Gorilla Hebrew. You need therapy, they telling me just chillin', be cool. I'm a magi archer, you a sad guy talking. And I'ma work cause I ain't going out lazy, bruh. Thought he was conscious, but the homie just played me, bruh. The house of consciousness is going out crazy, bruh. They crazy, bruh.
They crazy, bruh. Dang, I should have got y'all some better work than this on this shit. Hold on. I'm just grabbing things, trying to be quick, but I got some good work, but I want to break down a few things for y'all. What would I debate Lord Jamar about? Peace to Lord Jamar. We been down. Lord Jamar tell you that I sent him his first Metal Nature package. His first Metal Nature packet back in the day. Sent him a few dictionaries. Peace to my man, Lord Jamar. He been solid. Sent him a few dictionaries back in the day. He probably gonna remember that like the kid did do that. The man did do that. The Magi Archer did do that. I did that. I did hella shit. Y'all see we went on Sinetta TV to tell y'all it was me and Ankh that set up the Sinetta TV to show y'all how much love we been having for Sai before we even met any of the homies he brought out, bro. That was us. Who got this book? Huh? Who got this? What's this about? What this say? Huh? I want to see some books on the subject. I don't want to see you typing on the screen. Anybody start typing on the screen? Do I ever type on the screen when you ask me a question? Another safari. How you like that look? I said, now I'm preaching from my shrine like Brother Jabari. It ain't about dissing everybody, bro. It's about love for people, bro. I'm just keeping it real, but I might put you on the funny side of a lug. If I don't fuck with you, then I'll just make it apparent. You could tell from what I said and the shit. But the cats I fuck with, I might poke at you. Like I didn't say lying on the text like Divine and Zion Lex. I just put them close to lying on the text. I said lying on the text acts divine or Zion Lex. Because I'm a wordsmith. You feel me? I just put your name in the same sentence so you could think it, but I didn't want to say you was lying on the text because that ain't my spirit. There's a whole bunch of bullshit spirits in the conscious community. I really be thinking it boiled down to a lot of motherfuckers can't fight and shit. A lot of motherfuckers is fronting. They didn't really grind their acts right. And they just, I'm not talking about nobody in particular. I'm talking about all this fake willingness to fight. They like fake Tay-Rocks. It's hella Tay-Rocks in the conscious community. Always bout to. Every time you talk, it gotta be confrontational, like it's gonna turn to some street beef. That's hell. Every time I see that, I don't even open up my browser. I don't even dialogue with those people. I have been. People know I got my career I've done in hip hop. I don't refer to myself as casual because I don't want nobody to be like, when I'm rapping, I'm casual, bro. For real, you know that. Online, whatever. That's what I'm doing. But I ain't coming to this industry talking about I'm casual. I ain't never tried to hold nothing bigger over nobody. I just been Brother Jonathan, barring cats up since nobody even know. But we hit them with the Nubian Rescue, a book basically by Rex Keaton about the archaeological excavations in Nubia. I don't recommend it, but I just ran back and wanted to see who had 10 books on the subject. Who got 10 books on the subject, man? Come on, man. I just want to see. Because if you at your house talking that shit, you should be able to turn on the damn shit with your 10 books that let you know. How do you even understand that? Because I got books that help me understand the hieroglyphs. Okay? I'm not making this up, bruh. I got my counterparts books I could put in your face. These are the people who argue with me right here. Putting up 400, 350 pages on the subject. My good brother Ujahu. That they want to, man, please, I ain't that type, bro. You know, we like if I rocks with you, I rocks with you. This is what it is. This Ujahu book right here. What? Like what they want to do or what they want to say. I got books on the subject, bro. I'm not just, all of these books are on the subject. Rescue, reinterpretation, and the restoration of major ancient Egyptian themes. Do y'all see that? Rescue, reinterpretation, and restoration of major ancient Egyptian themes. And I will go as far as to say that's by my brother Asar Imhotep. And I will go as far as to say that if I did anything to inspire any of the work that put in here, which I didn't, but we was arguing intensely and immensely during the writing of this book, and this about 2013, 2012, on the subjects we speaking on. Okay? But then I could take you to places where you might want to go look into the religion and the magic of ancient Egypt because you're supposed to know the culture, right? What are you referring to when I start talking about the religion and the burials and how certain Nubians, how do I know Nubians got buried with boo cranium? I never heard that word in the conscious community. Have you? Keep it a buck. Have you heard that word in the conscious community? Nubians got buried with boo cranium. Why does that mean something? Because boo cranium is the skull of a cow. Okay? So then when we start seeing on the stela of Narmer, Bot, who y'all thought was Hathor, y'all wouldn't have no way to figure out that that wasn't Hathor because you ain't perused enough information on the subject. Am I lying or am I flying? I got works on the subject. Why is everything revisiting in it? I don't care. This is Ivan Van Sertima. Y'all do what y'all want, calling dudes who's so much greater than y'all pseudo. Like, how you gonna go down in history? Let's all ask each other that. How you going down in history as the person who came on YouTube and proved that it wasn't no Black Egypt? I know how I'm going down in history already, and I'm trying to make more marks to go down in history. But Ivan Van Sertima went down in history for defending the legacy of Kemet, and we want to call them pseudo because they got some books talking about the Moors is black. Man, I'll give you work on the Moors being black. Come on, dude. I could defend anybody. I could defend the Hebrews. I'll go be a Hebrew for a month. I'll convert right now and beat all y'all up. Say I won't. I dare somebody to say I won't convert to Hebrew right now and beat all y'all up. Shit. Because y'all don't know it. I mean, I'm not saying y'all, everybody. I'm talking about some of these pseudos out here who act like they got that work. Let me talk to, I argue for the Hebrews against Brother Jabari at any point in time. I won't do it against the Amara squad. Because I won't win. But I do it against Brother Jabari. I do it against Shaka Amos. My name is Jonathan. That means given by Yah. Y'all don't want to fuck with it? Really? Bruh? Because I'm a Magi archer. I never represented Egypt like that. I was smart from day one. Oh, take that back. Take that all the way back. But I'm going to beat your wig in the ground right now. Any sucker who think I'm wrong, he was with hieroglyphics. Shut up. I'm still with hieroglyphics. That's why you know this is divine. This ain't just, I didn't make this up. I didn't make my life up. I've been rocking with hieroglyphics since the 80s, bruh.